Whoa, whoa, whoa. It's not.
The lights go off.
Yes. Good evening, everybody. This is the March 8th meeting of the school committee. It was regularly scheduled to be last night, postponed to tonight. It is also a joint meeting of the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee. The Finance Committee has already opened their meeting. The Board of Selectmen, unfortunately, were not able to have a quorum for the meeting, but we are appreciative of Selectman Begley for being here. We will continue with the sole item on the agenda after public participation for the school committee will be a discussion of the fiscal 2013 budget. We have one other item on the agenda following that discussion, which will not be part of the joint meeting, but which we feel compelled to act on this evening. Having said that, I will open it up to public participation if anybody would like to address the school committee, or for that matter, to address the other boards as well.
Mr. Sweat?
Yes.
As you know, as I said earlier, we are open. I do have a member who would like to address the body on my committee, Mr. Camerano.
Through you, Frank, to ladies and gentlemen, and the selectmen, and also the school committee. Where we don't have a quorum or more than one select person here, we almost feel that should this meeting go on with our participation, where I don't think that anything really can be accomplished by any votes or anything. I know that the school committee is here in their quorum and full, and we are also. I just don't feel the presence of the atmosphere of the meeting is right. I don't feel we can accomplish what we need to accomplish here tonight due to the fact that we have one select person here. You know, I mean, I'll leave it up to everyone else. Through Frank, I just wanted to voice that opinion. I feel really slighted on it. Thank you.
And Mr. Paulson would also like to make a statement.
I fully concur in Dom's sentiment, and I thank Ms. Begley for taking the time to come.
Yes.
But I don't know how else to put it. The selectmen are supposed to be here for a joint meeting. This is an important forum.
Very important.
They're not here. There's no explanation as to why they're not here. And I find it unacceptable. I really do. I'm not going to, with all due respect to everybody else who's taken the time to come here, and to you, Mr. Chairman, I'm not going to stay. I just don't see the sense of it. It's an insult to this well, it's an insult to the committees, and it's an insult to the community as far as I'm concerned. And it's wrong. It's just wrong. And usually I'm more polite and more politic in what I say, but not this time. Not this time.
Mr. Chairman, may Mrs. Bronk address you as well?
Sure.
Mrs. Bronk?
Through you, Mr. Chairman. We came here in the spirit of cooperation because we know that there's a critical fiscal situation going on between the school department and the municipality. We know there's a huge problem, and we were hoping that we could bring the two boards, add some kind of continuity with the two boards so the children of Wareham don't pay for this this problem that we're all facing in the current economy. But obviously, it appears to me that only Mrs. Begley seems to take this serious on the side of the selectmen, because nobody knows where the other ones are. They haven't even called anyone to let them know. And I just think it's absolutely outrageous that the elected officials of this town are not here for this meeting. And why should we be? We came here to be constructive and get something done. We can't get anything done without the selectmen. We need them here. And I thank you, Mrs. Begley, for showing up and caring.
You're welcome. May I just for a second?
Please.
I just.
Just one point. Public participation has not been cut off, so if there's any member of the public that also wants to address the committees, I'd be happy to hear from you, but go ahead.
But just to correct one point, from what I understand, Mr. Cruz had expressed on Tuesday evening that he was unable to attend this evening, so we knew that Mr. Cruz would not be here. Unfortunately, I don't know about the other members, but I just wanted to clarify that point because I don't want this to be just painted with a broad brush.
Okay, fair enough.
We understand that. I'm going to make a comment from the finance side, committee side, from the chair. Yes. All right, as chairman of the finance committee, I want to make the following statement, and that is that the school committee has met and worked in great detail on the budget. The finance committee has already met and worked to some detail as best information we have, all right, several times. These have all been public meetings. The town administrator has worked with the finance committee. He's had the meeting with us in December, and subsequent to that, there have been several times where he has sat, if with no one else, myself, to discuss the progress of the budget. He has also met with the superintendent of schools. The superintendent and the chair of the school committee has also made an effort to speak with the finance committee as well on several issues, whether it's the capital issues or whether it's the operating issues. I agree with my committee members. We came here tonight. I have people who have been off airplanes less than 24 hours, and they were able to make it here tonight. Now, I think also Mr. Paulson is right, and I think all the members of my committee who agreed with him are right. This is an insult to the community. I encourage all the members of the FinCom to hear what the school has to say tonight, but I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I have a motion, seconded. All in favor? Aye. The Finance Committee is adjourning its meeting. Some of us will be staying. Some people have other commitments. We'll meet with the Board of Selectmen and the school committee at any time, either jointly or separately. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, Mr. Scasiotti. Tony, come on up. I'm not sure they can hear you, and I want the benefit of the community to have.
Around the tree. It's for the TV, so they hear you.
So speak up so everybody else can hear you, because, exactly.
My question is, seeing that, you have a quorum, there was a quorum here, you don't have a quorum with the selectmen, what can be accomplished here tonight? Can somebody explain to me, and I'm sure others would like to know in the audience, what can be accomplished here tonight? What can we walk away with after this meeting is concluded?
You want me to answer?
The superintendent would like to speak on that subject, and I'll refer the question to him, but I also have some comments as well, but I appreciate the question. Go ahead, Barry.
The town administrator has been meeting with myself, and we've had a meeting with the chairman of the school committee and myself and the town administrator. And what we're trying to do is, you want me to speak louder? Okay, I'll use my lunchroom voice then. Thank you. We have been meeting because of the large gap between what the school system needs and what is available. And because of language in the charter, the vote of the school committee is very important to what is put into the budget. Therefore, the town administrator and I felt it was in the best interests of the town to have this conversation between the three boards so that we might be able to recommend to the school committee to vote a different number into the budget. So that's what I was hoping to accomplish this evening. And the town administrator is here. He has his financial analyst with him. And I think, you know, we deserve to listen to him, to hear about the issues. And Mr. Sweat has done some work in analyzing the numbers, and we need to listen to that as well. So it is informational, I think, to everybody that is here. That's my opinion.
The only thing I would add to what the superintendent just said is that one of the things that we had hoped to present to the Finance Committee on a prior day, and we were planning on taking advantage of that this evening as well, is it's one thing to vote a different number. It is an entirely different thing to understand the consequences associated with a different number. When it comes to budgets, they have real consequences for communities, for services, to our constituencies. So that was, and I still think can be accomplished. The other thing that I had hoped to accomplish was to get everybody onto the same page with respect to exactly what is the problem. How did we get to where we are with respect to the fiscal situation of the town? Because I think it's important to understand the problem as well as before you go about trying to solve it. Frequently, people are solving different problems simultaneously, and that's not a productive exercise. So while I appreciate everybody's concern, I do want to add one more thing, and that is I don't usually like to speak for other people, especially other elected officials, but given the consternation regarding the lack of the presence of some members of the Board of Selectmen, I feel compelled to tell you that I had a conversation late this afternoon with Selectman Winslow, who told me that her doctor had advised her not to attend because of her health. So she very much wanted to be here, and I can't speak for other members of the Board of Selectmen, but I can say that Selectman Winslow wanted to be here and was advised by her physician not to come. Having said that, is there any other member of the public that would like to speak to the committees before we move on with whatever business we can accomplish? Yes, Ken.
Mr. Chair, I have to echo the feelings of the FinCom. I don't see what good it's going to be having this meeting. The intent, as I said on the agenda, was School Committee, Board of Selectmen, and Finance Committee. And 2 of the 3 boards are here. So just to have general discussion, to me, is just a waste of time. And I think that we should consider rescheduling when hopefully all the selectmen can be here. I don't think it's any benefit to have this meeting. I commend Mrs. Begley for being here. Whatever reason the others have, they have. But to continue this meeting is going against what this agenda stated, and it was a 3-way meeting between all members. So I don't know if you want to comment on that, but if not, then I'm going to make a motion to adjourn. The same as the FinCom. I'm going to make a motion to adjourn this meeting based on a lack of 3 quorums.
I would request that not be seconded, because we have one other item on the school committee agenda that we do need to take some action on, but I understand your feelings. I would like to give the town administrator the opportunity to talk about the timing associated with the budget process, because I do think it has an impact on any attempt to bring the 3 committees together in the future, meaning when we should do it, by which time, and after a certain time, it becomes academic for a variety of reasons. Mark, can you speak to that, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also want to try to keep hope alive as it relates to the information that we have today.
Mark, there's a request for you
Yeah,
to
you have to
speak up a
speak
little
up.
bit.
I'm sorry. I would like to keep hope alive. Maybe that's because of my nature being very positive, even in very difficult times. I stood on the stage back some time ago and talked about the beginning point of the budget process. The town administrator, by the 15th of December, is required by the charter to submit the foundation budget going forward, and that's really what it was. We know today, after listening and hearing and going to Boston and talking with people about local aid and Chapter 70, also finding out that I think our legislative delegation is working very hard, Mr. Chairman, to get us a local aid resolution that will hopefully lock in, cement in the amount of Chapter 70 and unrestricted local aid that we have, which, by the way, if you read the Mass Taxpayers Foundation report that spoke about this, we have hit the worst time in probably the history of calculating local aid for cities and towns in the Commonwealth's history. We also know that some of our costs, and I think in order to really air out the issue, we should talk about the items that our revenues are down. And they're not just down here in the town of Wareham, they're down in many cities and towns because of the economic scenario that we face. My hope was to get, before we had to go to print, which I believe is sometime, if I could ask the chairman of the Finance Committee, is Kelly's date the 19th of March? Do we know? To go to the print? No? 9th of April? Okay. Well, in terms of timing, it would be important to get all of the revenue issues, Mr. Chairman, all of the expenditure issues that we should at least talk about tonight, to get out to the people in any venue that we can, to let them understand that we're facing some very difficult choices. And budgets are about choices. We can't go forward without recognizing that those revenue scenarios are not going to change between now and April 9th. So I think we need to address them square away in whatever form that you'd like.
There's a couple of dates here, too. The warrant closes this Friday.
That's correct.
I'm sorry, Frank.
I was going to get to that.
I don't think you can be heard. And so if anybody wants to speak, I would really prefer you come up to a microphone.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay.
I don't want to leave this in a position where people might have the wrong impression. The Finance Committee has to print its final for the town meeting on April 9th with our recommendations. The warrant closes, I believe, on Friday and is approved on Tuesday, and then the Board of Selectmen are required to print the warrant articles and submit them to the FinCom. At that time, they're generally available to the public. All right, and we will begin our deliberations on the articles and, vote our recommendations on the FinCom. So it will come out sooner, but as you said, time is very close. I'm not sure what your timing is. Now, that can have a real dramatic effect as to what budget appears in the Selectmen's print. All right, normally ours is what's going to hit the floor, and that's usually after some adjustments have been made.
That, Mr. Chairman, is the point, that we have to take action, in my opinion, next Tuesday or at the latest the Tuesday after, to get in print the final numbers that are voted by the school committee and submitted as adjustments by the administration. Because once again, the foundation budget that was put forward by myself back in December needs to be adjusted. We need to put the numbers in as we know them to be as of this date. And so I don't want to belabor the point, but that's a schedule that I knew of when we consulted with Chairman Cruz to call this joint meeting this evening, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Ms. Fugan?
Thank you. I do feel that going forward, I mean, if the other agenda on the other item on the agenda, fine. But I feel that if we continue to have people speak to the budget and what needs to be accomplished, we're going to continue to have the discussion that was needed to happen with the three boards here. We already have input that is happening from the FinCom that have, graciously stayed in the audience, but I feel that we can't continue the meeting in this forum with presentations and knowledge for the community. What this meeting was about was to present what the issue is and to have discussion and input from the three boards on what needs to happen next. Any presentation will then allow the current members here to present, but not any of the additional board members or the FinCom that is already adjourned.
I respect certainly those comments and the comments that preceded them. I guess I'm sitting here feeling that in almost every respect, every elected official and appointed official is advisory to the community, to the taxpayers, to the voters, and anything we do to give them information so that they can make good decisions when they have the opportunity to do so is a positive. Yes, it could be delayed, and the information that we have to provide could come out at a different time, but I'm sitting here thinking that if there are some people in the audience and some people watching, they might like to have some of the information that I know our superintendent is prepared to give and was prepared to give the Finance Committee yesterday when it was initially scheduled to be provided. So, yes, I agree the discussion will be less than we had anticipated, and the decision-making process will obviously be somewhat less than we had hoped for. But I still think anytime you get to pass information to the voters so that they can have a better understanding of the decisions they'll be asked to make, I think it's a positive. But if I don't represent a majority of the committee in that respect, I'm perfectly happy to accept a motion to move on to the one subject that we do have on the agenda, which our superintendent feels is important to discuss.
Can I?
Please.
I agree with you that information to our community is important, and there are many people that have been working very, very hard with the numbers and trying to get to getting closer with the budget. What I'm afraid of is that information is going to be given out, but it's given out in just a presentation form instead of a more powerful format, which is a discussion. I would like to hear what the FinCom has to say about the two presentations. I would like to hear what the entire board has to say and their ideas about it. And we present this information. We're either going to be presenting it again in hopefully less than a week. Hopefully we can figure out a time to meet next week. So we'll either be presenting it again, or we'll be presenting it tonight in a forum where we will not get the opportunity to hear probably some great ideas that people have prepared to come to this meeting with.
Mr. Chairman of the Finance Committee, is your committee interested in hearing the school committee's presentation about the consequences of a level-funded budget this evening? You cannot deliberate? I thought you had a quorum.
They adjourned.
No, but I understand, but I'm sure there's a parliamentary way to get you back to the table. Please. No.
No. For the TV.
Television needs.
I have a very big body.
I don't agree with you.
I have a carrying voice, they tell me. I think the missing part of this puzzle, being the Board of Selectmen, is the issue here. We are the Finance Committee. We are an advisory committee, okay? And the school committee and the Board of Selectmen need to come up with a plan and present it to us in a way that makes it work. That agreement has to come first before we can step in the middle of this. And I think that's where our issue is, that we're here for our part of this whole plan, but the missing link in the middle here is getting your two boards together with a plan first.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, okay. I believe there's a motion on the... Yes. No one seconded it, but there is a motion on the floor. No one seconded it. Okay, go ahead.
Well, I was kind of excited about the fact that
Here you go, Cliff.
I was kind of excited that we scheduled the meeting for today because due to personal reasons, I couldn't make the meeting if it was yesterday, and it had nothing to do with the ball game, although it was nice to see that we won the ball game. But this is my dilemma, and if you folks recall, there were several negative votes to the budget originally, and I was one that voted against the budget that we proposed initially. And it wasn't because I thought the budget was too high. I thought it was because the budget was too low. I have a variety of reasons for saying that, but I've already spoke my piece on that publicly. But the only thing that I was excited about was, for me, I am not privy to the subcommittee of the budget. I'm not a member of the budget subcommittee, and I was looking forward to looking at in more depth, because I haven't gotten any information as yet, or an explanation as yet, as a board member, as to what the ramifications of a level funded budget would be, and to sort of reshape my thinking relative to the vote that we're ultimately going to have to take on the budget presented to the Board of Selectmen and put forward in town meeting. So I was basically excited about just the informational part for me as a board member, because, as I said before, I am not a member of the budget subcommittee, and probably of all of you sitting at this table today, I probably know the least about the strategies that have been discussed in that subcommittee. So that's one of the reasons why I haven't said a whole lot, because for me, to continue on has very little to do with the Board of Selectmen or the Finance Committee. For me, it's kind of selfish. It's so that I can have a handle on where we're going with the budget, what strategies we're employing, and how I can make a more informative vote when I have to make a vote for sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any other member of the school committee that would like to speak? Okay. I would appreciate the committee's indulgence that I would like our chairman to speak on the consequences of a level-funded budget. Excuse me, our superintendent to speak on the consequences of a level-funded budget. I realize that some of the members of the FinCom may have to leave during that. This is for the public and the school committee's edification, so they understand what the advisory committee has been doing. I appreciate the fact that Mrs. Begley and Mr. Andrews and Mr. Sullivan are here. They can stay at the table or leave or join the audience as they see fit. This will be informational, and once the superintendent has concluded that process, then it will be open to questions from the committee. And at that point, we will take the second item on the agenda, which has to do with a warrant article for town meeting, and then we will conclude our business. That is my recommendation to this committee, unless people feel strongly that it's a bad idea.
Mr. Chair, I would like to make a motion to move on to the second agenda item, but I'll leave it up to the committee also. I feel strong, well, I'll see if there's a second for discussion.
You have a second. Go ahead.
Thank you. Again, I would like to work as hard as I can with the other boards. to reschedule this meeting for the presentation to happen in front of the combined boards so we can have a true discussion and input into this presentation.
So just so I understand the motion, you're saying you do not want the superintendent to present?
I'd like us to move on to the second agenda item, yes, and
With-
not present.
And not present?
I would like him to present at a rescheduled meeting of the joint boards.
Okay, which means that the first time you and Dr. Sylvia would hear any of the details would be when everybody else was hearing them.
Yes,
That's what it means.
yes.
Okay. Any other discussion? There is a motion and there's a second. Yes.
I'll vote against that motion, only because, not to beat a dead horse. I'll vote against that motion, not to beat a dead horse, but, the players were here today, and because of whatever logistical reasons, we can't go forward with all the players. It was advertised, we changed the venue, the meeting was changed with ample time and all kinds of things, so, just to keep it going, is to me, counterproductive, so, I will vote against that motion.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
Put the microphone down.
Any other discussion related to the motion? Ken, you all set? Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
No. The
Motion
motion does
fails.
not carry.
That's fine.
Mr. Superintendent, you're on.
Okay, let's pass 1, 2, 3. I'm sure Dr. Sylvia would appreciate, I did not, since I thought this was gonna be for discussion, I did not put it on a PowerPoint.
Oh, I love PowerPoint.
Pass that down to Michelle, please, thank you very much.
You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna get one of these soft chairs that the Board of Selectmen had.
All right, I am going to, for the sake of expediency, I'm going to go to my third slide. The second slide talks about what I have said before about what is needed to eliminate the achievement gap. And
I'm sorry, do you have more of these that we could
I
make available?
do have a few more. How about for fundraising, we sell them to the highest bidder? There's another one there. Wait a minute, don't get up and run yet, because I may have a few more. I want to make sure I have enough for me. All right, and I've got one more to make, so now we're all set.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So, slide 2. 1 year ago, I proposed how to eliminate the achievement gap by full implementation of Wareham's response to intervention, implementing enhanced supervision and instructional leadership, implementing the Mass core curriculum at Wareham High School, and implementing the new Mass curriculum frameworks and standards K through 12. When I began having conversations with the town administrator about the need for a change in the number that was voted by the school committee, I began thinking about what I felt was needed in order for me to recommend to the school board to make that change. And my first condition that I felt was necessary was that both the school and the town budgets were reduced to the FY 2012 levels. that we should get an agreement from the boards to support the debt exclusions for instructional material, which we took out of our budget in order for us to get closer to a level-funded budget, and that there needed to be a clear understanding that without a contingency budget, which means an additional budget as an override, that there would be serious consequences. The amount of a cut necessary to go from what I built the budget on, what was needed, and to get to a level-funded budget is $1,808,000. The instructional material debt exclusion is for $341,000. So you can reduce that $1,800,000 by $340,000 and say that it's $1,560,000. What is the educational cost, and what would it do? I'm sorry, I missed. Yeah, all right. Teachers, a $1 million cut at the lowest
Excuse me,
salary teachers.
Dr. Bennett, can I
Yes.
ask one question on that? When you're talking about a cut, are you talking about a cut from our original proposal, or are you talking about a cut from a level-funded budget?
No.
When you talk about a cut, what exactly is that?
From what we voted, which was the $27,195,000, down to a level-funded budget of what was funded last year, which was $25,387,000.
And that would be about 1.3 mil, right?
And that would be $1.8 million.
1.8. So that's the cut you're talking about?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
And I then further said that if we had the debt exclusion for the $340,000 for instructional materials, which are basically textbooks and some technology, then that would bring down that cut to $1,500,000 in round numbers.
But I think it's important for the public to understand that in so doing, it means that if the debt exclusion does not pass at town meeting, does not get on the ballot, and is not approved by the taxpayers at a special election, those textbooks would not be purchased.
That is correct. None of those textbooks and none of the technology. What I did is from existing line items that were presented as part of the budget, I went through and I took out all new textbooks that were ordered and all of the technology, and that's what went into that debt exclusion.
Thank you.
A $1 million cut equals 25 teachers. And since we took 8 teachers we lost from this middle school last year, so the class sizes went up to 28 to 30. Where those cuts would be taken would be from the 2 elementary schools and the high school, which means approximately 8 teachers per building. And doing the exercise and taking 1 teacher away from each grade at the elementary school, it would bring class sizes between 25 and 27.
At the elementary schools.
At the elementary schools. High school class sizes fluctuate depending on the class, and it was not as easy to come up with an average class size. However, in discussions with Mr. Palladino, it would change what our current schedule is able to do. This is the first year we have not had study halls. Study halls would be back. In fact, it's my opinion we'd have to go back to the old schedule because teachers do not have duty periods in this schedule. And in order for them to cover study halls, they would have to have duties. But the high school principal is working on that. We would trim the substitute accounts
Well,
by...
Yes,
please.
Could I ask another question on this?
Absolutely.
Just for clarification. If you've had discussions with Principal Palladino about the possibility of reverting back to last year's schedule and having teachers have a duty period, This means then, probably, not speaking for the union, but probably there would be a further reduction because the teachers are now teaching 6 classes. They would go back to teaching 5 classes,
That is correct.
which would further impact class size and programs.
It would definitely change it and impact it, yes.
Thank you.
And whether or not the schedule needs to be changed is something that the principal needs to work on going through this. But a cut of 8 staff members at the high school will be devastated for what we need to accomplish. Class sizes will definitely go up to 30. Reduction in substitutes, $68,000. Reductions in staff development funds, $10,000. Support staff, $100,000 coming from support staff, meaning non-certified personnel. And other potential points that we will, after we come up with the numbers, we'll have to look at sports, facilities. There may be some need for moving programs, as well as an administrative cut in order to get to the number that we need. So some of the things that we've been able to add over the last few years will be cut.
All set?
Yeah, I think that says it all. It's
Does-
devastating.
Does anybody have any further questions for Dr. Rabinovich? Okay. I would like to move on to the last item on the agenda, please.
Okay. In your previous package, I don't know if anybody brought it, and I did not.
You mean the package that was,
Yes, the one
The
that
one that I
was
downloaded?
the original before we changed it 3 times.
okay, the one that I downloaded right here, right?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Michelle, for downloading that for me.
I will read it. There are a few articles, some changes that were made to the articles that we passed after meeting with the town moderator and the town attorney. And 2 additional articles to give us some flexibility depending on the budget discussions. First article, to see if the town will vote to appropriate a sum of money from the Transportation Revolving Fund to purchase or lease new and/or used vehicles for the school transportation department, or take any action relative thereto. The explanation is the Transportation Revolving Account generates a surplus that may be used to pay for new and used vehicles when the funds are available. The funds entering the revolving account are generated from the difference between expenses and revenues generated from field trips, athletic events, shuttles, and transporting homeless and special education students from other districts. I'm looking for a motion, Mr. Chairman.
We will certainly have some discussion, but I'll take a motion.
But that's all right.
Can I have a
For-
motion?
Motion
approve?
for discussion, yep.
Second? We have a second. Any questions? Any discussion?
I'm sorry that I don't have the packet with me. Can you remind me the motion that I have it here. The motion, we did vote,
There's 2, I'll explain the rationale.
so just so in general, are these additional articles that we want to put on town meeting floor, or are they,
These are additional articles, because if, for whatever reason, the other article does not pass,
Yes.
that borrows a sum of money, this then would allow us to purchase vehicles with existing money.
for the revolver? This was a discussion that we had last time that said, if it fails, we need to make sure that we have something on town meeting floor that allows us to purchase the vehicles with the
That is
revolver.
correct.
Thank you.
I think for clarification, and correct me if I'm wrong, if town meeting approves this, and when this article gets turned into a motion, it will have a specific sum of money associated with it, because it has to, in order for town meeting to act on it. What this will allow us to do is to actually purchase vehicles because town meeting will have approved the purchase of vehicles, which currently there's some ambiguity as to whether this revolving fund allows us to do so. I need to stress, however, the following: that at the current level of funding, meaning the level of funding that we have today for the Transportation Department, and if it stays the same, which is the current number in the draft preliminary budget for next year, the surplus that's generated by the revolving fund will be necessary to make up for the deficit created by the level of funding in the normal operating budget. So it's the combination of the revolving fund and the operating budget that will allow us to approximately break even. So that the reality is that the only way we will actually have any funds to purchase buses is if we do something with regard to bus fees or the reductions in services, which will allow us to take some buses out of service, reduce the number of routes, drivers, et cetera, and generate additional surpluses so that we can turn that into some kind of income to support the purchase of vehicles. Is that a correct statement?
The only thing I'd like to add to that statement is the fact that Mr. Tatro is preparing for our action committee this Plan B, so to
Scenario,
speak.
yes.
Scenario with the cuts in service as well as fees, and that after it's brought there, then it would be brought to the school board, because we can't change the service without going through the school board. I mean,
Yes, absolutely. And
So-
the presentation to the action committee is scheduled for the 20th of March, and then the school committee will hear that presentation the following day.
this particular article is here so that if there is money available in the revolving account and we have the need for vehicles, that we would be able to go out and buy them.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Because the order of articles is done by lottery, are we able to make a recommendation that this article comes after the article that talks about the purchase of of buses through a debt exclusion?
We are able to do that.
To ask.
Our ask, okay? The moderator is here, but I'm not actually sure, and we can talk about this, whether it's necessary to remove that, because it will always be up to, and the discretion to purchase with a surplus would be valuable generically, even if the debt exclusion was passed. So I take your point.
Right.
But
it could sway.
I understand.
Okay.
I understand.
So,
Yes.
so let me get this thing straight. I know that I have a tendency to go off on a tangent, but am I safe to assume that fees are on the table to solve the transportation issue? That we're going to be charging parents who are struggling to make ends meet to bring their kids to an educational system that we're dismantling? We're dismantling the educational system of Wareham, and we're going to charge these parents to bring them there? Is this really on the table?
Is that a rhetorical question?
No, yes. No, it's not rhetorical. I want to know if this is really on the table. Because I find it absolutely ludicrous.
Okay, we have to start with the fact that we have a legal obligation to provide transportation services. And then we have the knowledge that the funds to support that legal obligation are dwindling. And therefore, we have to have a Plan B. I stress it's a Plan B. It's not a Plan A. But for us not to have a Plan B would be irresponsible. But as the superintendent says, before anything like that is enacted, it would be brought before the full committee.
Well, it's my opinion, not to belabor the point, but it's my opinion that Plan B is irresponsible. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
That's, okay, I fully understand the, your consternation, or whatever word you would prefer to use.
Just mad.
Okay. We have a motion on the table, we have a second, we have had discussion. Is there any further discussion?
Could you just tell me who seconded it, because I missed that?
I did.
Any further discussion?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All
Aye.
those opposed? Abstain? 4-0-0. Next.
To see if the town will vote to appropriate through a Proposition 2 1/2 override a sum of money to avoid teacher layoffs or take any action relative thereto. And for explanation, a level-funded budget may create the need to cut $1,300,000 from the teacher salary line item. At an average beginning teacher salary of $40,000, this would require 25 staff layoffs.
You gave us 25 for $1 million. Are you sure you don't want to adjust that 25 for $1.3 million?
In excess of 25.
It depends on who the people are and what
Right.
their salaries are and how
Okay.
far up the seniority list I have to go.
Okay. Okay, we have the superintendent's recommendation. Do I have anybody who would like to make a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
I was hoping at this meeting tonight that the need for this article wouldn't be there. Articles are withdrawn, correct? And I feel that this is necessary to bring it to town meeting voters if we do not come to a if we do not come to get closer to the number that's needed to educate the Wareham schools. But I'm still hopeful that the committees and the boards and the town administrator and the superintendent coming together, that we are able to look for additional ways to get closer to the number that's needed.
May I?
Yes.
I wish I could say to you that there was this pocket of money that somebody was holding and wasn't going to give us. That isn't the case.
Derek, you sure you don't have some money, Derek?
I have to say, in working through this process with the town administrator and Derek, in being honest with one another, and the town has slashed their budget, whether in negotiations is an extra 50, 100 here and there is not $1.3 million. Let me tell you that. There is not $1.3 million. If there were, I would be here telling you we need to keep fighting for it. That's not the case. That's why this article is here, because I believe this is real. I would not have met with the principal of one of my elementary schools this morning and talked to her about the things that she's gonna have to cut in her building if I didn't think that this was real. So, there is a consequence if this does not pass, then 25 people or more will lose their jobs. And what Dr. Sylvia said about devastating and about dismantling is absolutely correct. But as the town administrator said in his comments, this is an extremely difficult economic time. And the only way that other communities have avoided this is that they have voted the resources necessary to educate the children. And I believe we need to ask the voters to do that.
Cliff?
Yeah.
A couple of things I have to say. I'm sure there are people out there in the community, good people, taxpayers, hardworking, who just can't believe that this could be so. That what Dr. Rabinovich just said is true. Just cannot believe it. I'm a numbers person. I have been tracking the numbers of this town since 2001 in my little home computer. But the numbers are there for everybody to see. All you have to do is take the warrants, look at the budgets, and you can track what is happening to the money. I have done that. I can tell you that both the schools and town general government departments are growing, on average, over the last 12 years, less than 2%. I repeat, both the town side, meaning the controllable town side, the departments, police, municipal maintenance, all of the things that we associate with town services, plus the schools and the transportation, they're both growing, on average, less than 2% a year. So you might say, how do we get in this mess? We got in this mess because of uncontrollable spending, especially in the area of benefits. It's just a fact, something members of the FinCom are acutely aware of and have spoken about many times. In fact, there was a town hearing on the financial situation in the middle of about 2005 that a former FinCom chair had. He was dead on right. It's just come to pass. That's the first thing I'll say. This is not a problem of us not valuing a dollar and spending money like water. Neither on the town side nor the school side. It's just not happening. The other thing I will tell you, and this is what makes me mad, is because it's outrageous that we should have to put this article in front of the voters when the real reason is because the state has failed this town and others in the calculation of what we need to provide an education to our children. And if the governor and the Secretary of Education and many other people, even the head of the legislature, were sitting in this audience, they could not tell me I was wrong, because they have failed to update the formula to determine how much aid comes to cities and towns like Wareham. It's a fact. Not a factoid, not a rumor, it's a fact. And they just don't want people to really realize it, because it now matters what town you're born in, the quality of the education that you get. And we have hit a wall. So for me, this article represents hitting the bottom, because it's asking people to take money they don't have and invest it in education, which I think is the best possible place to put money, is in education. Or to put it another way, if we were starting a community from scratch, the first thing we do is make sure there was law and order, and the next thing we do is create schools. Everything else comes after that. So, without going on and on, which I could, I'm going to vote for this article because I think I have to give the taxpayers a choice to invest in schools, knowing that many of them can barely afford to invest in their families, let alone the schools in which their children attend. Any other discussion? All those, yes, sir.
I will support the article, and I'll support the article for kind of a different reason. I'll support the article, and hopefully, and I will talk for it if in fact we have not found some kind of an equitable solution that makes this article moot. I hope that would happen, that we wouldn't have to do this. But the other reason I will support it, and I would argue for it at town meeting if we have to, is because it puts the solution to this problem squarely in the hands of the voters. First the voters at town meeting, and then the voters at large. And, you know, we've talked about it. We've got some real problems in this town, both social problems and financial problems. You know, we've got very, very poor families. We've got one of the highest rates of single-parent households in this town. We've got foster children in this town. We've got, you know, families, whole families living in motels down on Route 6. We've got a litany of problems. And my feeling is, do we continue to shortchange our children? I'm not talking about the best education. I'm talking about an equitable education. And what this article does, it provides an equitable education for our kids. And, you know, and I could go on and on for a lot of other different reasons, but I think the most important thing is, first of all, I mean, I hope that this article is moot at some point in time, but if it isn't, I will argue for it. And it puts the decision squarely on the voters. And I know that no one wants their taxes to go up, but if you look at the fine print, and if you look the way it's structured, and maybe when we have some other meetings, you will see that it's not going to take a huge dent out of your pocketbook. The other thing is, the state, again, this is like off the subject, but Jeff kind of talked about it, the state not upholding their commitments. You know, this could be solved very easily, ladies and gentlemen, in terms of the education formula. But no one in Boston seems to listen or seems to want to hear it. All they have to do is change the formula from real estate values to average income. That's all they have to do. If they took the per capita average income and based their educational aid on average income as opposed to real estate values, this whole situation would be solved. But no one in Boston wants to hear it. So, again, you know, one of the best things that could happen for this community also, not only to support our kids and to provide an equitable education, but also for property values. The best assurance you have for an appreciation on your property value is a school system that's doing the best they can for their kids. That's the best assurance to increase the value of your property. And for that alone, I will argue that we should support this if it comes to it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Abstain? 400. Thank you.
The last article is one that we voted on already, but there has been some wordsmithing. Again, like I said, we met with the attorney and with the town moderator, and so we've incorporated the changes. And this, well, I will read it.
So just to be clear,
Yes,
this has already been approved in one form,
yes,
and so by this vote, we will negate the prior vote, and it simply will not be submitted to the town administrator and the moderator for inclusion in the warrant.
it will be inserted in this new format with these different words.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Yes.
Okay. Michelle, do you agree, parliamentarian? Okay.
Okay, the article, to see if the town will vote to authorize the treasurer to borrow a sum of money contingent upon the approval of a Proposition 2 1/2 debt exclusion to be extended under the direction of the Minot Forest School Building Committee for a feasibility study of the Minot Forest Elementary School at 63 Minot Ave, Wareham, Mass. 02571. for which feasibility study the town may be eligible for a grant from the Massachusetts School Building Authority, MSBA. The MSBA's grant program is a non-entitlement, discretionary program based on need as determined by the MSBA, and any cost the town incurs in connection with the feasibility study in excess of any grant approved by and received from the MSBA shall be the sole responsibility of the town or take any other action relative thereto. The explanation. Minot Forest Elementary School was built in 1966, and a major addition was built in 1974. A modular unit with 4 classrooms was added in 1994. The goal for this project is to renovate and add to the Minot Forest Elementary School to meet the educational requirements established by the Massachusetts School Building Authority and the community. The cost of the feasibility study for this project is estimated up to $575,000. The needed addition would replace the current modular classrooms and provide additional classrooms to house kindergarten students that are at the Ethel E. Hammond School. The school is deficient in overall space relative to adequate educational standards. The major mechanical systems, including heat and electrical, are all original. The Wareham Fire Department has repeatedly asked that the fire alarm system be updated. The project will be eligible for at least 60% or better reimbursement from MSBA. If I may, just one additional comment about the feasibility study. When I called the architect that has done a number of these and asked, what do they include? What I was told is they do all the original studies that need to be done. For instance, they do a traffic study of the site. They do a geological study of the site to make sure that wherever they build will hold the building that they're putting up. They do an analysis of whether or not there are any additional things like asbestos that need to be contained and taken out. And they come up with an educational drawing. So they meet with the educators, with the community, with the MSBA, and they come up with a drawing with all the things that are necessary. Once that is done, and the school building committee accepts that, then they have to go to the MSBA and negotiate to see. So for instance, the community may say, instead of a cafetorium, we want an auditorium with 500 seats. The MSBA might say, we aren't going to pay for that on our dime. Comes back to the school building committee, they take it out, you go back to the MSBA, and then they say, all right, now you can go to the next step, which is coming up with your drawings with the mechanicals and so forth, so that the job can be costed out and estimated. So there are multiple steps in this feasibility study. It's not one simple study, and it took me a while to understand all the various components that are necessary. And so you also have to hire a owner's representative as part of this process that works with the building committee from step one, right from the point where you are looking in a design selection to pick the architect. So those are all important steps that have to happen before you have this concept of what the building is going to be and contain and so forth, and what the cost of it will be. So that's why the additional money. There's also a 10% contingency built into this, because you never know what might come about and you're doing it. The hope would be you wouldn't need that, and it will come in costing less than this, but you need to prove to the MSBA that you have enough voted to pay for it, so that they'll give you the okay to move to the next step.
Just for clarification, other than some legalese, is there any substantive change to this article?
It was the legalese.
Okay, so we can feel comfortable that however we chose to vote the last time, the impact of the vote will be the same.
Yes, sir, that would be
Okay.
my recommendation.
Okay.
They didn't get my vote the last time, so
True.
we'll get it tonight.
Exactly. The other thing I would ask, there's a lot of consternation. My sense is there's a lot of consternation in the public who have kept abreast of this, that $575,000, more than $500,000, is a huge amount of money to spend to do something that we know needs to be done. We don't need to prove it. Do you have a sense of that we're going to get good value for this money? Notwithstanding, of course, that we don't get 60% reimbursement if we don't do it. I mean, that's a minor piece of leverage, I guess, that the state has. But do you consider this to be reasonable value?
Absolutely, and I think the first step is that you get the expertise of the building authority to work with you. You get an owner's representative that sits with you, and you begin looking at what this can be in that particular school from an educational point as well as a structural. And this building that we're sitting in, the project was, I'm going to call it $24 million. So 2% of that would be $480,000. Given that prices have gone up, we're probably saying that this is probably 2%. So it's that money spent at the beginning is needed to make sure that you get quality at the end. And that's from going through every single brick on this building.
Okay, I'll take a motion, then we
No,
can have
I-
more discussion,
right,
unless you'd
right.
like, is that okay?
Yep.
Could I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Second. Discussion. Cliff?
Only because I was ill the day we voted on this originally. Can I just put this thing real simple for me? We're doing this because, correct me if I'm wrong on my little timeline here, all right, this is the reason we have to do this, is we are now, on paper, eligible for the school building assistance program.
Correct.
And in order to actually be approved for a project or a grant, we have to show that we're serious, and we have to show good faith that we are serious about the project.
That is correct.
So, is that the reason why this feasibility study falls into that category? Being serious about the project before they'll even discuss whether or not we're eligible for those 40-cent dollars?
They have put the language in, so if a community applied, got in, and then didn't do anything.
Right.
Never voted for it, then they can take away the ability for you to get funding for it.
Correct.
That is a change in the language.
So we would not be eligible for the 40-cent dollars.
That's correct. In fact, we have a local community down the road that had been approved, did not get their vote, and now is off the list, and if they want to get back on, they have to reapply. and
So
get
this is
everything
just
again.
showing a seriousness towards the project, and it's something that probably has to be done anyways. So.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Any other discussion? I will take a motion. I'll take a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstain? 400. Thank you. Is there any other business that people would like to bring before the committee? Yes.
Not business, I just want to talk through really quickly about the process on the override and debt exclusion articles that we voted last week and this week. So correct me if I'm wrong, but now they need to go to the Board of Selectmen for approval to go on the warrant. And again, that's only for the override and the debt exclusion articles.
Correct.
They go to the Board of Selectmen to then get approved to be on the warrant.
And you correct me if I'm wrong, but my belief is that it goes to the Board of Selectmen who have the right to vote whether they are in favor of them or not, but they go on to the warrant irregardless.
It's whether or not they go on the ballot.
That's a different matter. But
That's correct.
But the warrant, at town meeting, I've seen things that have been on the warrant that have had a 0-5 from the Selectmen and FinCom, and they've been on the warrant.
It will say underneath the article,
I remember that, but they
submitted
can't.
at the request of the school committee, and that's the most important thing. The Board of Selectmen will vote on it, but I think the superintendent's right. It shows up on the warrant regardless of the action.
That's something new
yes.
for me. I thought that it was that they needed the approval for debt exclusion warrant articles to go, to go on the ballot. I understand now.
Distinguish between the warrant and the ballot.
Right.
Yes.
Again, yeah, I thought that it was to even allow town meeting to vote on it, or not, but you're saying no, town meeting, not the town meeting will be able to vote on it regardless of the vote of, or the support or the vote of the Board of Selectmen or the FinCom.
That's correct.
Okay,
But that's not binding that it'll make the ballot.
I understand. It is just, again, for procedure, is it before or after? Is it after town meeting when the Board of Selectmen will need to vote whether it goes on, that the Board of Selectmen will need to decide on whether it goes on the ballot?
I believe, but I could be wrong, that
Because it's
they're
voted on,
guided
it's
by
moot.
town meeting. But I suppose in theory they could vote before town meeting.
But if it's,
Mrs. Begley, can you shed light on that? Is it theoretically possible you could vote on debt exclusion override articles before town meeting?
I believe so.
Yeah, I think they have the freedom to vote whenever they so choose, but
I'm not entirely.
yeah, I think they're usually guided by town meeting.
Okay.
But it's not required they be guided.
Certainly ask, town council.
Yeah.
Right.
we'll ask the town council.
Okay.
We can, Mark can probably check that out tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay. You know, I know that we've had a lot of discussion on this. The short thing that I just want to say is that depending on the outcome of the joint efforts of the FinCom, the Board of Selectmen, and the school committee, and depending on the outcome, based on that work, that if overrides and debt exclusions will need to go on for vote, and depending on that outcome, and if it's in the negative, the thing that I'm concerned about talking with parents in our community is that they will move, but many parents have said that they feel very strongly that they would need to move their children out of the Wareham public school system. And the statement that I'll just say about that is any study that you do of towns and communities where there starts a mass exodus of parents moving out of town as well as pulling their children out of schools, it is a downward spiral for that town. And it's what I'm worried about more than anything, because I think, like many people in this community, we love this town and we need to be able to support our schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
I think we have two calendar items. One is, if we're gonna make another meeting, another meeting with the three boards.
I'd like to.
And the second one is that I have a conflict in the month of April at our April 11th school board meeting. I am going to be gone from the 8th until the 22nd to China, and an administrative shadowing program. So I was hoping perhaps we would be able to move the 11th meeting up to the 4th. It's not two in a row. We have 1 week in between the last, because we have a March 21st meeting. We would not have a meeting on the 28th,
Can
and
you
then
say the
we
date
would
again?
have one on the 4th. So I would like to move the April 11th meeting to April 4th.
okay with me.
Mr. Chair, I'm fine with that too.
No problem. So the April 11th to April 4th.
It's in.
Okay.
Do we need to vote?
I don't think we need a vote on that.
No.
Okay,
Yeah, okay.
make it so, Michelle.
Make it so.
And then what about the rescheduling of the joint meeting? Do we need a vote on that, or just?
Oh, we gotta
Well,
get a time mutual.
if we had a,
Can't do that.
you know, if we had a proposal for us to vote on, but I'm not sure what the vote would mean.
We can't do that tonight.
Well, if today is the 8th, are people available on the 14th for us to invite?
I'm not.
Okay. We have a meeting on the 21st.
Problem with the
Michelle's
21st.
looking at me because we already have
And
a
The
double
agen-
agenda
yeah,
for
the
that
agen-
night.
The agenda for the 21st is already absurd, and I think that's too late.
And, yeah, Mr. Chair, one of the things that I heard from the town administrator today, that it's next week and maybe push until the week after that, but we need to either do it next week or.
I'm thinking it might make sense to join the Board of Selectmen on the Tuesday evening of next week, as
You
a,
have to be invited.
we have to be invited.
You have policy review next
Fair
Tuesday.
point. Or 5.
No.
We have a policy review committee meeting, which I guess.
And Monday, I have a designer selection committee meeting.
Yeah, that's Monday.
Let's put it this way. Your chairman will get to work immediately after this meeting to try and come up with a date
Well,
that works for people.
would Thursday the 15th work for people?
Is that OPL?
Yes.
That's OPL.
Shoot.
And I can't do that either, so.
Oh, well.
But, so, yeah, so,
I will work diligently with the 2 other chairmen to see if we can come up with something.
Oh, well.
thanks.
Anything else to be
I
brought?
have one piece.
Please.
And it's just a procedural piece. I read your email. I just was going through my emails before the meeting today, and I read your email on the revision to the superintendent's evaluation, in particular, the goals section. And if you recall at our workshop, it was a tie, and you indicated that the tie had been broken. But I think you need an official vote of that at an official school committee meeting. So I just don't think that we should just assume that the tie was broken, so.
I agree with you completely.
So we need to vote on that. So all I'm saying is put it on the agenda item.
I agree.
And
Let's
we'll vote on
again
it.
right now.
No, you can't.
2-2.
You need 48 hours.
No, Jess can vote.
I agree with you.
This time.
I was going to bring it up when we,
Okay.
because we've got other things.
It's just a procedural thing.
Agree completely. Okay, anything else to be brought before the committee? I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moves.
Second? We're adjourned.
Amen.